Hello and welcome. My name is Peace Mitchell and I'm co-founder of Women Changing the World Press, together with my sister, Katie Garner. Before I begin, I would like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land that I live and work on, the people of Mamu country in North Queensland. And I would also like to pay my respects and acknowledge traditional owners and elders, past and present, right across Australia and the Torres Strait. Well, I'm very excited to be launching our new book, Resilience and Reinvention. This book contains the stories of incredible women from all over the world. And I'm incredibly honoured to be able to speak with some of these authors today. And first joining me is Carol Hanlon. Please join me on stage, Carol.
Well, thank you very much, Peace, and it's a pleasure to be here speaking with you about your wonderful book and what you've achieved with creating this throughout the world.
Oh, thank you so much, Carol. Now, Carol, for people who haven't met you before, I would love you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you and the work that you do.
Okay, well, I run not-for-profit organisations. I help people in small business in Western Australia, across Australia and globally wherever I can. And my passion is helping women in small business and in particular creatives and those in developing countries wherever I can.
I love that. That's amazing. Amazing work that you do, Carol. Now, your chapter is called Making a Difference. Can you tell us why this title was the title that you chose for your chapter?
Well, because, I was a designer for 20 years, but I actually started sewing when I was 7. I started sewing for clients when I was 13 and left home and school at 15. So after having a label for 20 years and then helping people in small business, I realized that I had a gift of being able to join the dots very quickly and make things happen. So making it happen is what I've done for the last 32 years in creating multiple projects that now have helped over 44,000 entrepreneurs and small businesses around the world. And joining the dots is what I can do and making it happen. And I encourage everyone who's listening to this, if they have skills and talents, to share them and to make it happen in their town, their region, their country, and the world wherever possible.
Oh, I love that, Carol. And you have made such a difference to lots and lots, thousands of women all over the world. Your chapter starts with your memories of your childhood and growing up with hardship, but also creativity and resourcefulness. Looking back now, what do you think those early years taught you about resilience that still helps you to this day?
Well, it taught me to survive. It taught me to rest on my own laurels and to that you can get through things and you can make it happen if you've got determination and you persevere and think outside the square of making things happen. That's what it taught me, and that achieving things when you've got a challenge in your life builds actually, well, in reflection, not at the time. You don't think of it at the time, but it actually builds your character and your determination. So your title of the book, Resilience and Reinvention, probably fits pretty much what is my mantra.
I love that. I love that. And there is a thread throughout your story of constantly reinventing yourself, from sewing garments as a child to then going into fashion and business, mentoring and global impact work. Was there a particular moment where you realized your life was becoming about more than just business success and truly about making a difference?
Because when I was running my fashion label, I was also very involved in community development, and I was the governor of Victoria, of an international service club involved with speech and hearing impaired. So we did all sorts of projects. That was back in the era where we were fundraising for the bionic ear and setting up tally printer networks and sending off containers of books to Fiji after cyclones. So the power of doing stuff and like joining with like-minded people is something that once it gets into your bloodstream is pretty hard to shake. So global sewing village projects is what I've been doing a lot of for the last 20 years, sending sewing machines and textiles and haberdashery to help women start livelihood sewing projects, because with a sewing machine you can clothe your children or you can create a business, which is what I did.
I love that. It's incredible seeing the impact that you've had across the world, because you've worked with women in villages, in refugee communities, Indigenous communities, and with entrepreneurs from all over the world. What have these women taught you about strength, dignity, and possibilities?
Oh, so much. And that's probably why I still get inspired every hour of the day, of making linkages. I was just linking the last 3 or 4 days with Comfort and her women's refuge in a support center in Minnesota, with all sorts of global speaking opportunities and the Girl Scouts in USA to give financial literacy lessons to her women. So I'm continually learning. In fact, if you think you know it all is the time you've got to give up, because there is always another way of looking at things. The world of business is changing, the consumer is changing, but the looking at other people's point of view and realizing what else, all the things you don't know. And in fact, that's what I love to help women in business, because they're time poor, is to get the skills that they need to grow and develop their business.
I love that. There's really such a strong spirit of paying it forward in your chapter. Why has mentoring and opening doors for others become such an important part of your mission?
Well, because when people are running a small business, because I had my own for 20 years, I know how tough it is and you're time poor. Mentoring, providing support is what people need, and there is a lack of support available, and even in Australia, but globally there is so much need. So that's why I created virtual incubation projects. I lose track of the years now, since 2009, virtual incubator. So as soon as the internet, well, in the old days, they used to call me in WA Fax a Day Carol, because I would share information out on the fax to all the other business centres in Western Australia.
I love that. That's amazing.
Fax a Day Carol. Yeah, well, because you don't know what you don't know. And so I try to break down all of the pieces of information, because back in the 70s, nobody was very much interested in helping a woman in business. And so I've been self-taught, but, obviously I have lots of accreditation and things since starting the business center. And I'm also the national president of the Institute of Business Facilitators, which provides accreditation to business coaches and mentors and advisors. So I'm very passionate about people being supported the right way with integrity and accreditation, and to get what they need to do.
Yeah, you're absolutely incredible, Carol. Carol, if you could go back in time and sit down with that young girl sewing clothes from fabric remnants and selling newspapers at the railway station, what would you want to tell her about the life that she would go on to create?
Probably find a support base around me earlier than I did. Don't do it hard. Be smarter, don't do it harder. Because I grew up with a tendency of being very independent and to do it yourself. So probably to find networks and linkages, and especially like-minded women, because building women in business, especially home-based businesses, can find themselves isolated. So going back. But back in the 50s and early 60s, there wasn't much community support organizations around. So you just learned to survive and just deal with the cards you were dealt.
Yes, you're incredible, Carol. Well, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for your generosity. You are always supporting women right across the world through the projects and programs that you do. And we're so honoured to have you as part of Resilience and Reinvention.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the opportunity. And once again, I encourage everybody that's involved with your organisation and those that are listening to pay it forward to other women and to share their skills and talents to others.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Carol. It's been wonderful chatting with you again today.
Thank you.
Well, now it is my great pleasure to introduce our next author, Cara Antoine. Please join me on stage, Dr. Cara.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm really good, Cara. It's so wonderful to see you here. Now, for people who haven't met you before, I would love you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you and the work that you do.
Oh, thank you much. Well, it's an honor to be here, and I just love listening to Carol's story just before mine. And you know what's so wonderful piece is that you've brought together women of all walks of life and of all works of life in all stages of life. And I think it's wonderful, a wonderful collaboration. For myself, I'm also coming from a very global international background, also even having lived many years in Australia as a young girl. And that has led me to a life as a global executive leader in technology, a keynote speaker, a two-time best-selling author. And I work at the intersection of technology and humanity. So more than 3 decades of international experiences all across Europe, the United States, some years in Australia, of course. I really look toward innovation and the capability shifts that will help to advance business performance, while at the same time strengthening social impact and societal impact. So that's very important to me. A few of the great companies that I've had the opportunity to work with include Microsoft, Shell, Hewlett-Packard, which started off on the compact side, IG&H, Polaroid, and Capgemini. And as the first Chief Technology and Innovation Officer for Europe at Capgemini, that has been a wonderful platform to look at sovereign value chains, cognitive security, inclusive leadership, and the human dimension of digital transformation.
Incredible. The work that you're doing is amazing, and you truly are a trailblazer in your industry as well. So yes, thank you so much for the work you do. And your chapter in Resilience and Reinvention is called Weathered Forward, The Shape of Becoming. Can you tell us why you chose this title for your chapter?
Yes, of course. So in terms of the chapter itself, it's really built around a single reframe that strength is not necessarily a personality trait. If we think back to the number of times that we've been called strong, it's really, in my experience, a response to necessity. So strength through necessity. And from there, in the chapter that I developed, it traces 3 lived chapters from my life with stories from my experiences around, as I would classify them, move, health, and leadership. And each one that demanded a different kind of resilience, and each one that really shaped the person that I'm still becoming, and therefore a part of that title. I think if I would look at the connection to weather, it's in terms of being weathered forward, not in spite of experience, but shaped by it. Just like weather doesn't really damage terrain randomly, it or a depth or a definition across the surfaces that it touches. And this is what I meant by living weathered forward, allowing experience to shape us rather than to diminish us. So that's just a little bit on the naming of the title, but I'm happy to go into the areas of the chapter that I was exploring as well.
Yes, I love that. Well, I'd love to dive straight into your chapter then. You talk about the 3 different areas. Can you tell us more about this?
Yes, absolutely. So as I mentioned, there are 3 primary areas. So I was looking at movement, health, and leadership. So movement is really about emotional resilience in the way that I tell the story in my chapter. And what it really means to build belonging when you are somewhere unfamiliar. So as I mentioned, as an international global citizen, I recall a time that I was on a jet bridge in Newark Airport in New Jersey, and continuing to walk down that jet bridge, even recognizing the fact that I was fundamentally about to change my life, moving toward a decision that I made with full confidence, but in that moment feeling like all the air just evaporated around me. And I was walking toward a flight to Munich, Germany. And I landed in a blizzard in Munich. It was in January. I was alone. It was on the eve of my birthday. And I thought, wow, landing in this very unfamiliar place, I learned through time that I could go to the grocery store and make myself a birthday dinner. I could, start to recognize things and educate myself, upskill myself by immediately diving into the language. And I learned ultimately that home is not a fixed place. It's something you can build through language that creates connections and helps us to develop new rituals. So this was about my emotional resilience and telling myself that I would be okay. The health part of the chapter was about physical resilience, interestingly enough. And it's quite a personal story, but it's something that has significantly impacted my own life. Developing a severe fungal infection in China that spread through my body and ultimately to my left eye. Resulting in a cornea transplant, as well as 14 additional procedures over the next 2 years. I learned that the real test wasn't going into the surgery, which I can tell you in the very first time that they said, we're going to be putting instruments to your eyes with just a few numbing drops, I was terrified. And I learned to change my perspective of the questions that I was asking from not what's the surgery going to be like, because of course you're going to be asleep then, but what was the recovery going to require of me? And what grew out of that was that the recovery was unexpected in many ways, on many levels for me. It really helped me to embrace deeper empathy. Working with Cornea Patient Association and numerous other boards where I still support today other patients as a patient leader, other patients going through eye disease and eye disruption, creating multisensory art experiences at the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, and learning that my limitation, if you would call it that, now being blind in one eye with a transplanted eye, being redirected, but not lesser because of it. So it was really overcoming this message around physical resilience that said, I can stand back up again. And then the third one was around leadership. And here I was looking at cognitive resilience. So, as leaders, oftentimes, no matter what's going on around us, we find through necessity the strength to keep going. And I remember one vivid time in my career when I was told, happened to have been at the time in India on a business trip. And I was in a conference room with my boss, and an HR manager joined us, which often isn't a great sign when suddenly that person appears. But they told me that my role would disappear due to a restructuring that was taking place globally in the organization. And, I had to leave that conference room and go back out and face, several hundreds of people that I was leading at the time, and still had to run meetings. I had to, I had a team that I needed to lead, and I had a plane that I needed to catch to fly back to the Netherlands. And so this chapter is what I called cognitive security, in terms of the discipline of protecting the inner alignment when external structures change around us. And it's this philosophy that many people may be familiar with of Ubuntu. I am because we are, staying fully engaged until the last day of the work that I did at that organization, because I recognized that the leadership that I brought and the ability to then choose to step in, knowing that I wouldn't be a part of the new organization, was going from 52 countries down to 4, and I just didn't happen to live in one of those 4 locations. It wasn't, my leadership would not diminish just because the role was ending. And everyone knew of the change that was coming up. I knew of the change that was coming. And so, the choice was, I can continue to lead until I leave. And people chose to stay connected to me because they enjoyed my leadership, and they trusted and believed in it. And they knew that I was there for the better good, to ensure that this organization landed in the best way possible. So those are a short summary of the 3 themes that I have explored in this chapter that come from very personal stories. But I wrote them also because I felt that they would be resonant for other individuals, and that we may all move, home. We may all experience a health challenge or a health scare, and we experience different things in our leadership that I hope that, and we recognize the need to protect ourselves, and having that cognitive resilience, how vital that is for our own security and our own resilience as we build.
Amazing, amazing. You talk a lot about resilience in your chapter, and a lot of people see resilience simply as pushing through no matter what. Has your understanding and definition of resilience changed as you've gotten older and experienced more through life?
Yeah. I think it is. I think, a lot of times we, again, we're told that we're strong. And what I've learned through writing and exploring and researching this and thinking about these 3 dimensions of resilience is that strength is a response. It's not a trait. Most of us didn't wake up one day and choose to simply become resilient. We became resilient because the circumstances required it. And I think that reframe is important, and that really matters because it makes resilience something accessible rather than something that you either have or don't have. We all will be facing a challenge at some point in our lives. I'm sure of it. And so that strength through necessity at the time that it matters most is when you recognize in yourself, and then maybe giving a bit of the framing of, is this challenging me cognitively? Is this challenging me physically? Is this challenging me emotionally? It's these layers, and each of those speaks a different language. And I think that each has its own internal reassurance. And together, they form something that's much more durable than any single moment of strength that could provide. So, I think that the disruption, there's always a phrase, when I'm talking to clients in the C-suite around businesses and organizations, of when you think everything's going really well is probably the best time to disrupt yourselves. You want to disrupt yourself before someone else comes along and disrupts you. And that disruption, through the challenges that you're facing, can expand you when you engage with it deliberately. And that's the same in business, but it's the same for us as individuals. So, losing my vision deepened my empathy. It expanded my ability to have even greater empathy for others and what others were going through, by wanting to lean in more and help others through their own circumstances. Losing a role clarified my values about myself. And so none of this was automatic. It all required conscious choice to integrate into what, to lean into the challenge rather than to. One other thought on that piece as well is, Ubuntu, so I am because we are, is a lived choice. It's not a theory. And in the moment that I learned, for instance, that my role was ending, what really steadied me was the decision to ensure that others landed well. We always say that leadership is not about you as a leader. Leadership is what you can do to empower others. And, and I think that's for me when philosophy becomes practice, and wanting to ensure that others are in the shape of their becoming, that they can grow, that they can become the best version of themselves. And so I think, at the end of the day, these weathered changes, these seasoned experiences, if you will, really shape who we are. And that's the shape of who we are becoming throughout our lifetime. And there's not a start and a stop point. It's something that will continue to evolve throughout our life. And it's something we can mature and we can learn. And we will see things maybe from our past that have happened. And we say, I've seen that before. And I know I have cognitive resilience to handle this, because no matter what happens, I can handle it. And that can be a message that you have the strength then to tell yourself because of what you have experienced before.
Oh, I love that so much. Amazing. And thank you so much for being here and being part of this book. Dr. Kara, you are an incredible leader, and you have such a wealth of experience across different countries and companies and leading lots and lots of people. So we are so honored to have you. And yes, thank you so much for sharing your chapter in Resilience.
Thank you so much, Peace. It's my honor. And again, my hugest compliments to you and to Katie and Dr. Terai for what you have done to bring this beautiful collaboration together of incredible women, 25 different stories and perspectives of life and resilience and reinvention. It was an honor for me to be part of this. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much, Kara. Well, it is now my great pleasure to introduce our next author. Please join me in welcoming Marissa to join me on stage.
Good morning.
Hello, Marissa. How are you?
Oh, I can tell you that I'm in a bliss, because I've been listening to you and to Carol and to Kara, and I could not. There's no better way to start the day with this beauty and inspiration. So, thank you for that piece.
I love that so much. So Marissa, for people who haven't met you before, I would love you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you and the work that you do.
So for the ones who don't know me so well, I am a liminal creature. I'm a creature of in-betweens. And some people say that I'm a little bit odd because they cannot contain me in 1 minute pitch. But let me try to break it very simply. I'm a lawyer by training. I became a very rounded legal professional from also my experience of general counsel, chief legal officer, and other roles that I took in the legal career, contract management, data protection officer, and now working more and more in the intersection between also policy, regulation, technology. But I am a very curious creature. So I'm always in the becoming. I'm always chasing new areas, and I don't indeed contain myself. So I provoke with the expression Renaissance woman. I would like to imagine that we could thrive to be much more than our careers. And with that, I think I'm pretty much in the side of the creative people and the entrepreneurial ones. And with that sense, I founded the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Netherlands, Portugal, since I'm Portuguese living in the Netherlands now, with a beautiful Portuguese-Dutch family with 2 beautiful boys and my Dutch husband. And that for me, this area of business was extremely important, even for my own knowledge, but in order to create also opportunity for others. And at the same time, I could not leave my big passion of education and critical thinking, philosophy, and humanities. And therefore, I also co-founded the organization Humanity of Things Agency, focused on literacy for the 21st century, based in what we should know to be these critical thinkers and become active citizens. And now, very recently, I'm also following my passion. I was always a passionate of science, and physics was always my secret, in the sense I was always seeing documentaries and reading about this topic. I find it fascinating, and I'm very lucky to be in Delft, a very vibrant city that in a way incubates many minds and technology and entrepreneurs. And I'm very active now also in the quantum computing space. I am part of the We in Quantum Development Advisory Board. And I've been trying also to write as much as I can. I have a weekly column in a Portuguese newspaper, global Portuguese newspaper. And I think I do too much, as people tell me, but I like to channel this sometimes too much energy to be productive. And that's the only way I know how to live, at least at this point of my life.
I love that so much. So many dimensions to you and your interests and your passions. It's just absolutely beautiful, Marissa. Now, Marissa, your chapter is called The Exhaustion of Self. Can you tell us why this was the title for your chapter?
Yes. I was very lucky to already be part of another book. And, I am a deep, I would like to state this, I'm a deep fan of you, Peace, in particular, as a woman. You are a role model to me, but many of these women that are around these beautiful women in changing the world, of course, Katie and Dr. Terai, and like I say, Cara, and all these beautiful women. So I was part of another book, and in there I talked about a side of me, and that was very beautiful. But at the same time, I keep thinking, I think we live more and more in a very curated world, where we are always trying to be positive, and we're always trying to be inspirational, and we're always trying to show the things, but after, in a sense, everything about overcoming, resilience, but in a place that you are okay, or reinvention after the reinvention happens. And when this book came along, I understood that I was, and I am, in a process of another reinvention, but maybe a really big one. And I thought I wanted to convey some truth of the not so nicer side of things. What do you feel while you are going through it, and how hard it is? And some days you don't want to hear anything about positivity, or the part of the overcoming. You really want be able to sit there, or to have someone that sits there with you. And I was listening to Carol and to Cara, and I totally agree with them. And Cara said, it's not a choice. Resilience is not a choice for sure. It's an opportunity. If something goes wrong, that you can also steer your life in towards that direction. But indeed, when it happens, and it takes so long, sometimes cycles are so difficult, that I wanted to talk about it. And I wanted, for those women, and in particular, but some men as well, sometimes ask, oh my God, you have so much energy, and your life seems so interesting, and you are so strong. One of my best friends says that all the time. Oh, you're such a strong person. And I said, not really. And I also wanted to show that indeed, sometimes are really, really low and down. And I wanted to open that side of my own soul and spirit to be one with the ones who are reading at the moment, that maybe they're not in their best, and at the same time, without a lacking of hope, but with the harsh part of sometimes it's takes longer, and it's really, really hard and painful.
Yeah, it is a tough topic, and I know it's something that so many women struggle with and will resonate with your chapter for sure. For you personally, though, it really does explore identity and emotional exhaustion in such an honest way in your chapter. Did writing it feel confronting or healing, or a bit of both, or something else? What was the experience of writing this chapter like for you?
No, it was very painful piece. I'm not going to tell you different. It was painful. It is still. I can tell you that even trying to read it out loud makes me sometimes need to stop a little bit. Like I say, it's still very raw. Everything is very raw. I'm still in the process. So, but I think that's exactly the value that comes from it. It's because it was, and it is so difficult to look to it. But indeed, I have this commitment more and more to the truth. And I actually think even this exhaustion that I mentioned, and people think, oh, you must be exhausted or having a burnout because you work so hard. Not at all. I think the burnouts and the exhaustions and this nausea of existing sometimes, it's so much more about this lack of connectivity, profound, real connection, that we do feel like we are in frequency with others and in a really good belonging. And I think we are more and more isolated, and also the world is showing us a very, very dark side of it all. And as a child of the 90s, and I said that in the chapter, I think maybe for our generation will be always this feeling, this bittersweet feeling, that we were so hopeful. And I do believe that we thought that we were going to a place that we would see humanity prosper in a way that never before. So we were for sure not prepared to this huge slap in the face that is the last years, and also almost this sense of nihilism sometimes, of what can we do, and I think it's even in parallel to my career. That's why for me Humanity of Things became so much more important, this idea of humanity agent. I always end this idea of the humanity agent, and because we really need that, and like I say, very, very difficult to write, very difficult to look at it and think, oh my God, why did you write this? And should you have? And at the same time thinking, yeah, you should, because you committed with some truth, and you, hopefully this will connect with someone in a really, really honest way.
Yeah, I feel sure that it will. I know that there will be women who need to read your chapter and will see themselves in your story, and in the hard times that you went through. But looking back now, what helped you to begin rebuilding your sense of self again?
Like I said, it's been a process recently, and I think this was a mix between the times, but even the age. I just completed 48, and I think we all feel these different life seasons. And what is now at this time helping me a lot is this radical honesty with myself and others that I'm really trying to practice, and being kind, yes, but being more really even confrontational with, like I say, with myself and others, because sometimes we allow things to happen. We are raised to not be confrontational, especially women.
Mm-hmm.
We really, really don't like that. And, sometimes you need to, and I was seeing an old interview of Sade, this beautiful singer that we all know from our generation. And she was even talking about getting mad or getting upset that sometimes was needed. And I feel like this is something that is helping me, but at the same time, I'm able to reach places of calmness within that I didn't have before. So I think and I talked in the chapter about that. I have a small, almost silly ritual. I have a candle that is always in my living room, and it's like I have a big box of candles, but when one ends, I really put another one immediately. And I think it's reminders. We need reminders, and I understand that more and more. When you have all the knowledge within a place, what you need every day after is reminders, reminders, reminders. And it's almost like we, the ones who had children, and say, but oh my God, I say this every day, and we need that. We need that everyday reminder of the most important things that we indeed care for, and that what we need to do. So it's what is helping me now. It's this very step by step, and yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I love that you have the candle and you have that ritual. I think that's really important. Now, Marissa, if there's someone who's watching right now who's going through a hard time, what advice do you have for them for how to get through it?
Yeah, I will really tell you to reach out. I think isolation is really the worst thing possible, even if I think most of us require some solitude that is different from loneliness. But I urge that people get these two sides. Nowadays, I feel like when we are in this period, that we medicalize it too much, oh, you need a therapist, you need the pills, you need this, and without wanting to be controversial, sometimes if you are in a really low period of your life, with exception of cases that can be chemical imbalance, so please mind, I understand that, but most of the times it's just life telling you, this is really not good for you. Get out of here, get out of where you are, get the people around you, the place where you live. When you are not well, you should not mask it. That's why I talk about confronting it and really sit with it and look to it in such in such truth, that even if you have the therapy and the pills and whatever, most of the time it's a sign that that external side, that pain is just telling you this is no longer where you should be in a sense of life. It doesn't mean always the place, but like there's a next chapter, and that's why I like the idea of the rebirth, and the less time that I have that rebirth, I used to hear a song every morning that is very, very happy. That is called literally Reborn from Stone Sour. And because I was younger, that gave me such a kick before I went to work. So I think different times of your life will require different things, but indeed, people, and hugs. I'm a firm believer that we need to have friends that we say license to hug, and just be there, and sometimes holding a hand and let the other person just be. And so you can be that to others, and you can even ask that to ones that you really love and care about. So yeah, don't hide.
That's beautiful advice. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much, Marissa, for being here, and thank you for sharing your beautiful chapter in resilience and reinvention. We really are honored to have you as part of this book.
Thank you for having me, and for all this beautiful 25 women to share this journey with me, and such an honor. Thank you so much, Peace again, and Katie, and thank you for being there.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Marissa. Well, now it is my great pleasure to welcome our next author, Zweli Banks. Zweli, please join me on stage. Hello, Zweli. Do you have your camera? Okay, seems like her camera is not working, but Zweli, I'd love you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you and the work that you do. Okay, it looks like we're having some tech issues. Oh, there she is. Hello. Hi, Zweli, can you hear me? Okay, we might need to come back to you, Zweli. I think the internet's not working. Okay, let's welcome our next author, Harry Candlin. Welcome, Harry. Angarad.
Hi, Peace.
Hi, Harry. I just realized my tech team might not know that I call you Harry.
Yes. And Harrod can be a bit of a tricky mouthful.
So for people who haven't met you before, I would love you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you and the work that you do.
Oh, sure. So I'm a well, I was a psychologist. I'm now a retired psychologist, and I worked in the community services sector for about 35 years. And I had to make the decision to prematurely retire because I have two conditions that are incurable and degenerative. So I have psoriatic arthritis and I have multiple sclerosis. So now what I do instead of being in the community is I'm an author and speaker. And so I'm able to choose my time, choose my hours, and that really enables me to still connect with the community, but to do it on my terms, I suppose.
I love that. Now, your chapter is called In Search of Ruby. Can you tell us why you chose this title for your chapter?
Yes, I can. So so in 2020, I had a quite significant relapse of the psoriatic arthritis and the MS. I woke up one morning really unable to function, is probably the best way to say that, in extreme pain and very difficult to move at all. It was nothing to do with COVID, if anybody's thinking that. It was literally just a coincidence. And it very quickly became aware that my functioning wasn't brilliant, and my occupational therapist said that I needed to have a wheelchair. And I was really confronted by that. I was really challenged by that, because I had been this person who, you know, jumped on aeroplanes and flew around Australia to train up practitioners working in rural areas. And I was active, and to be told that really now is the time that you need to consider having a mobility device or a wheelchair was just huge. I could see my life evaporate, my future that I had expected evaporate. And so I started to look for a wheelchair, really. And I looked online, and I was desperately depressed and disappointed by what I saw. They are, you know, there's a lot of choice in wheelchairs, and obviously people have got very different conditions and need different things in their wheelchairs. But for me, what I needed in a wheelchair was something that allowed me to continue to be independent. And so one day I saw online a wheelchair called an Omeo, and that wheelchair is like no other wheelchair that you've seen before. And I went through the whole rigmarole of applying for funding for my Omeo, and obviously approval from my occupational therapist. She trialed it with me, and we realized that it was actually the only wheelchair that would work for me, because my hands don't work very well either. And so we applied for it. It took 2 years for my wheelchair to arrive. And I had asked if I could have a limited edition red wheelchair. They had only built 5 red wheelchairs, and I had just missed out on the last one. It actually gone to a friend of mine, was somebody who became a friend through this whole process. And so I was very cheeky, and I said, can they possibly build an extra red wheelchair? And I didn't know whether they were able to or not. So I didn't know when it was delivered whether it was going to be red or black. And the doors of the van opened, and there she was, a bright red Omeo wheelchair, who I instantly called Ruby. And she goes with me pretty much everywhere.
I love that so much. You're currently overseas, I believe, and you've been on an incredible tour. And
I have.
Your wheelchair has enabled you to see and do so many things. Can you tell us about this experience and the difference that it's made having such an incredible wheelchair to support you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, I think a lot of people who are using wheelchairs are very nervous about traveling. And because we hear so many awful stories about wheelchairs being broken, which is 100% true. Ruby has been broken before by airlines. So it's always a little bit nerve-wracking. But for me, having a disability and having a wheelchair, I just refuse to allow it to stop me. And so when I retired from work, what I did was I retired from work on the Friday, and on the Saturday, this was a few years ago, I got on a plane to the UK, because I knew that if I didn't, I would regret retiring. I loved my job. I loved my team. And I had to hire one of those sort of big cumbersome wheelchairs, because Ruby wasn't built in time. And look, it was great, and I'm very grateful for it. But it was absolutely clear that this was not going to work for my life. And so anyway, Ruby arrived, and so I had a baseline when I was looking at wheelchairs. Just before the pandemic, I had facilitated some training in a remote Aboriginal community in the Gulf of Carpentaria. And I decided that whatever wheelchair I had had to have the capacity to allow me to fly to remote communities or to anywhere and everywhere. And so Ruby arrived. I traveled internationally I traveled interstate after she arrived. And this year, or last year actually, I decided to the Paralympics, which were in Italy, the Winter Paralympics in Italy. And so I made the decision, and then I made it happen. And so there is a lot of planning that goes into place when you're traveling with a wheelchair. I'm not going to minimize that at all. And I wouldn't have been able to do this trip without a support worker. So I do have a support worker who is with me on travel days. I do need some extra help on travel days with luggage and all of those kinds of things. So I came over to the UK on the 27th of February, and I was here for a couple of days, and then we set off on multiple trains to eventually get to Milan. And we stayed in Milan, and we went to the Paralympics, and it was fantastic. And then we went back to Munich, where some friends of mine live, and then we interrailed around Germany and Belgium. And then we came back to the UK, and then, I've been in the UK for the last 2 months, apart from a little sojourn in Paris, where I spoke at the Women Changing the World Summit, and, and won an award for Woman in Literature, which was a phenomenal honor. And Ruby has enabled me to do all of that because there is no way in a million years, whilst I can walk a little bit, I cannot walk for very far. And fatigue is a huge issue with autoimmune diseases. And I honestly, if I didn't have Ruby, I would be at home and I would be on the couch, physically unable to do anything. But Ruby has opened up the world for me. So I fly back to Australia tomorrow, actually. So it will have been 3 months away, and an incredible experience. So I'm originally from the UK, so I've been able to travel around the UK and see family and friends. And I'm just shy of 80 train trips over the last 3 months.
That's absolutely incredible. And of course, we got to connect with you in Paris, and you actually were able to go faster than all of us. So often we were jumping in and out of Ubers to try and get around Paris. And you were like, I'll meet you there, and you'd get there before us. So I was amazed to see how zippy and incredible your wheelchair really is.
Oh, she absolutely is. But what you didn't see, Peace, was her off-road tires. So she has these incredible, huge off-road tires, which means that I can go on the beach. I can go, in the bush. I can go in muddy tracks and in the snow, because obviously we were in the Alps for the Winter Olympics. And actually, I didn't need the big. We call them the big boy tires. I didn't need the big boy tires, actually. Her road tires were enough to manage the snow in the Alps. But they're there if I need them. And it means that people who, live and work on properties and on farms are able to continue with their work as well. Ruby is like a part of me. And a lot of people ask me how I make Ruby move, because she doesn't use a joystick. She actually uses my body. I move her with my body. And people often say to me, how do you do that? And I say, well, how do you stand there? And how do you sort of turn around? And they say, I just do it. And I say, well, I just do it on Ruby as well. She is absolutely part of me. And she has enabled me to just grab life. Grab life by the wheels is actually the tagline for the Omios, and it is true. I will not let a disability, I will not let a degenerative, incurable conditions stop me from doing what I want to do. I guess it would have been very, very easy to give up, and nobody would have blamed me for that. But that is not what I have been created for, and it would not have suited me. So that isn't to say that I didn't experience quite a lot of emotions around it, and and there was definitely quite a lot of grief, and especially when I was looking at wheelchairs, and I really had to think about my identity and think, what does that mean? Am I labeled for life as a disabled person? And there is nothing wrong with that, but it comes with it a level of what I see around me is there can be a level of sympathy for people with disabilities, and those that are really obvious. So when you're using a wheelchair, but I don't need sympathy. Sympathy isn't helpful. What I need is empathy, and I need understanding, and I need people who are on my side saying, go for it, and that gives me the courage, because this is not easy stuff, getting on a plane with a wheelchair and then being away from home for 3 months it's a bit scary at times. But I think resilience is taking those emotions and those feelings, and it's not suppressing them at all. It's about owning them and saying, this is big. This is a really big thing. This is a really big challenge, but I won't be defined by my disability. And I don't want to be an inspiration for anybody, except for people who do have disabilities and are nervous about adventuring, and I want them to know that it is actually possible.
Yeah, your story's amazing, and I think your chapter's about the wheelchair, but it's not about the wheelchair. It's about you and how you've embraced your identity, and you've looked for possibilities, and you've found a whole renewal of life and what's possible for you, and you haven't let it slow you down in any way. You're out traveling the world, and I think that's incredible and such a beautiful example of what resilience and reinvention looks like.
Yeah, I went from this sort of very capable, competent, person who was very busy with work, which I loved, and it could have taken me out, and I had people around me, so I want to just say that resilience, there is an element of choice in what we do in terms of choosing to be resilient. However, it is very difficult to be resilient on your own. And so I think resilience is best built in community, and I think community, connection, and people cheering you on and standing with you and getting into the hole with you when it's into that dark place, and saying, I'm with you and we're going to get out of this together, is actually what enables us to build our resilience. And I had people doing that with me when at my hardest I am going to give up moment, when I was fighting for all of my assistive technology with the NDIS in Australia. Actually, out of the blue came 2 friends who were also fighting for OMEOs at the same time as me. And the 3 of us together actually, I think, got us through. Our OMEOs were approved, all 3 of us. I was the last one to get approved, but I was absolutely determined that it wasn't going to take me out. But I couldn't have done that without my 2 travelers with the NDIS, and we just encouraged each other and we helped each other. So yes, I'm resilient, and yes, I build resilience, and yes, I challenge myself, and yes, sometimes I don't have a choice but to put my one foot in front of the other. But I couldn't have got there without these two people who became friends, because they got it. They totally got it, and they got me. And the three of us, I think they would say the same thing, that the three of us and our encouragement and support of each other was essential.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Harry. It's been wonderful chatting with you, and we have been so honoured to have you collaborating in resilience and reinvention with us. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Peace. Okay, bye.
Thanks, bye. All right. I'd now like to welcome Zwelly back. Zwelly, please join me on stage.
Hi, Peace. How are you?
Oh, I'm good, Zwelly. I'm so glad you are able to chat with us now. For people who haven't met you before, I would love you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you and the work that you do.
Oh, Zwelihle Bengsensiwa is a Zimbabwean born multilingual author. She was born in Zimbabwe and later relocated in Botswana.
Oh my gosh, I think we just lost Zwelly. We will come back to you, Zwelly. I'd now like to welcome Wambui to join me on stage. Hello, Wambui.
Let's see. Oh, forgot my camera. I'm trying to get my camera. Oh, there we go.
There we are. Hello. Wambui, for people who haven't met you before, I would love you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you and the work that you do.
Hello, thank you for having me, Peace. My name is Wambui Mashua. I am a chef by profession. I was originally born in Kenya, but I am now based in Oregon, USA. I am an entrepreneur as well, which started when I was about 12 years of age, living in Kenya. I am also a swim instructor, a certified swim instructor, and a cultural ambassador with the Oregon Folk Life Network in Oregon, where I educate people about African traditions, African food, and just advocating for all things African.
Amazing. I love that. And your chapter, Wambui, is called She Walked Barefooted into Her Destiny. Hang on. No, that's not correct. Your chapter is Red Mud and Rain.
Yes.
My apologies. Tell me why you chose this title for your chapter.
I chose this title because I went through the Red Mud and Rain. I grew up in the village of Gashie on the outskirts of Nairobi, Kenya. And we have very fertile soil, and it's red in color. And so growing up as a child there, we didn't have electricity, we didn't have paved roads, and we didn't have running water or plumbing. And so when it rained, the soil would turn muddy, and it was red, and it was slushy. And I had to go through that while going to work, while going to school. So it was an experience that I lived through the first 20 years of my life.
Incredible. Your story really captures a sense of perseverance through difficult circumstances. Looking back now, what do you think carried you through your hardest moments?
Whoa, I would say a lot of faith, a lot of faith into looking beyond what my circumstances were at that particular moment. I used to read a lot, get a lot of books from the outside world. I was lucky that I had access to books, because one of the things that we didn't have was television or radio, because we didn't have electricity. So having this access to books and reading and writing opened up my world to the outside world. And so that carried me through and helped me to see beyond where I was, that I could dream of another world, of another place, and that it was reachable, that I could actually obtain it. And so my escape was through these books and through these magazines that I had access to as a child. So that got me through.
I love that. That's incredible. And being able to imagine a better life was really what got you through. Your chapter has such a strong connection, though, to place and culture and memory. How much has your upbringing shaped the woman who you are today?
Everything, all the way through. I am currently a chef. As I said, my profession is a chef for the last 18 years in Oregon. And I founded my company, Spice of Africa, based on my cultural upbringing. I am not a classically or professionally trained chef, but I am in the terms of my tradition, in the terms of my upbringing, the food that I ate when I was growing up, the traditions that we had, the family gatherings, gathering around with the family, eating together, celebrating together during the holidays. Christmas holidays, we used to get together with my cousins, and we would slaughter a goat, which is Kenyan tradition, and then share it with my cousins. My grandfather had 13 children, so all those children had children, and they were my cousins. So we were a whole clan of the Mashua family. And so all those traditions have brought me to where I am in terms of starting my company, which is called Spice of Africa. And in Oregon, I specialize in Kenyan food, which I've been serving for the last 18 years. So yeah, all these cultural traditions are what I'm still a part of, and I still adhere to even today.
I love that so much. I love that connection that you have to your home and your culture. Can you tell us about resilience, though? How would you define resilience, and what has resilience looked like for you in your life?
Resilience has been about being able to persevere and go through different circumstances. In my chapter, I talk about being young in America. It's kind of like of a coming of age story, and coming to America when I was really young, in my early 20s, very naive, and starting a business. I first started with African art, and I got together with a businesswoman, with an American businesswoman, who then took advantage of me and stole my Kenyan passport, my ID, my money. I was left with nothing. And so I was what was considered homeless in America. I didn't know anybody in Portland at that time. But luckily enough, I was introduced to a Kenyan fellow, who then introduced me to some other Kenyan people, some two ladies who took me in. And during that time is when I had to be really resilient and really try to make ends meet. Here I am living in somebody else's house. I don't know them. They don't know me. They're just some kind-hearted two women and their children who are willing to help me out, to take a total stranger in. And in that regard, and I didn't have anything to my name except the little art that I managed to salvage from this woman who kicked me out of her home. So I had to be really resilient and go out there, try to sell this artwork, try to make a little bit of money, and just keep the faith and keep going on until I was able to put together some money, and then be able to try and stand on my own, try to make ends meet. And that's what it's all about, being really resilient and having your faith. And when you have nothing and you don't know anybody in a foreign country, away from your home, no family over there, and you're young and in your 20s, and so that was a really, really trying time. And I really, really had to have a lot of faith and depend on a lot of people in order to then move forward and look forward and even be able to hope that things would get better.
That's such a scary time. I can't imagine how frightening that would be to be going through that.
It was.
Yeah, but I know that there's other women out there who are facing difficult times and facing circumstances that they don't know how to overcome. What advice would you have for somebody who is facing tough times right now?
It's not to be able to, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because if you're all alone and you feel alone and you feel there's nobody you can trust, there's nobody you can depend on, they might be just that one person who's going to hear your story, who's going to be empathetic, and who is going to be able to give a helping hand. And also to always remember to have faith. To have faith, if you believe in God or if you believe in a higher power, to believe in that, and also to believe in yourself, to just trust. We women are blessed with intuition. We have an internal intuition that we were inherently, blessed with. I would say trust that and trust yourself, but most of all, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yes, I love that. Such great advice.
Or to accept the help when it is given, because sometimes that's also difficult to accept that help when that is being given.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So was there a turning point where things began to shift for you emotionally, personally, or professionally? Can you tell us about that?
Yes, twice. I believe about 2 times. Once was when a neighbor of the woman who stole my passport and who stole my things. That particular neighbor called me when I was living at this other lady's house, whom I now called my aunt. Those 2 ladies and their children who took me in ended up being family. So I consider them my family now, and I call them my aunties. And the neighbor called me while I was living with these 2 women and said that he had my passport and wanted to give it back to me. So I was overjoyed. At least then I had an identity. I could prove who I was, because before I was not able to prove who I was. I would have had to keep looking over my shoulder if I was stopped by the police, immigration, or anybody. There was no way. I couldn't go back to Kenya. I didn't have a passport. I didn't have any ID. I didn't have any money. And so that pivotal moment when he called, and his name was Charles, a wonderful man, he just called and he said that he had my passport and he wanted to return to me. I was overjoyed. I met with him. He gave me back my passport. And in that way, I was able to then go to the bank, identify myself, get some money that was sitting in my account, because I didn't have access to that before, and then start changing my life from then on. I was able to get my own place, able to keep selling my artwork and making ends meet. So that was a real pivotal moment. The other pivotal moment was when I started my company, Spice of Africa. And I believe this was 2019. And I had been participating in lots of fairs and events and a lot of cultural events, and putting my name out there. And in 2019 was the first year that I managed to get a 6 number 6 figures, I say, 6 figures income from my business. And from that time on, I felt, wow, I can really do this. This has been a turning point for me. Now I can start looking at giving back to my community, giving back to others, helping other people. Just knowing that this family of 2 women and their children had taken me in and had helped me also was a pivotal moment that helped me realize that when I get to the point where I can be able to do that for somebody else, then that's what I wanted to do. Going forward, that's what I wanted to do.
I love that. I love that then you were inspired to pay it forward as well. Can you tell us a bit about how you are giving back and helping your community?
Yes, sure. I would love to. In 2015, I got together. I'm a member. I was a member of the Beaverton Rotary Club, and in 2015, I got together, paired up with Rotary International, and in collaboration with them, we sent 2 containers of 100,000 books, and we distributed them to over 30 local schools so that they could start their own libraries. And keep the reading and writing culture alive. And we went there. We spent 4 months in Kenya. At that time, I was with my 12-year-old daughter and a bunch of other volunteers, doing this work. So I basically just shut down my company, Spice of Africa, took off for 4 months, and decided to do this work. So we went ahead and did that. And distributed all these books. But further to that, when I went back, and that was 2015, it was quite a few years, maybe about 20 years later, I still found that my village was still the same. Yes, we now have electricity, we have running water, and we have paved roads. However, it's still the same. We don't have the social amenities for the kids, for the adults to get together, to have a gathering place. So that is still lacking. And kids are still bored. They don't have any extracurricular activities. And if they do, they have to be bused to other towns, which is time consuming and expensive. And so this idea, I got an idea to build and to construct a community center. So I went ahead and founded a CBO, a community-based organization. We called it Gashie Development Center. The village is called Gashie. So we founded this development center and this community-based organization that has about 16 board members, both in Kenya and in the US as well. And now we are in the process of raising funds so that we can build this beautiful community center that will have a swimming pool, a commercial kitchen, and housing for guests like you, Peace, if you want to come to Kenya, and Katie. You're welcome to the community center. We're hoping that we're going to start construction this year, and then that we can open in 2027. And so that's one of the ways that I want to be able to expand on my giving and helping my community, is to establish this community center that can welcome all community members, because those social amenities are still lacking.
Absolutely incredible what you have done with the books and this new development center that you're working on. Congratulations.
Thank you. And now I'm a published author too, so yay!
Yay, we can have more books in the libraries as well.
Right.
So, thank you so much for being here, Wambui, and thank you for sharing your story as part of Resilience and Reinvention. I know that our readers are going to find your journey so inspiring.
Thank you so much for having me here, Peace. Please say hi to Katie and Dr. Tarai. You guys have done an incredible job for giving us this opportunity. And I feel that it's going to be the start and the launch of just different chapters in our lives. And so I am so grateful and really, really appreciate the honor and the opportunity, that you have given us. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much, Wambui. All right. I would love to welcome back Zweli. Zweli, please join me on screen.
Hello, Peace. How are you?
I'm good. Zweli, we'll start again. For people who haven't met you before, please tell us a bit about you and the work that you do.
Oh, Zwelisha Benson Siwa is a Zimbabwean born author, beautiful children, and my husband in Botswana and my small family in Botswana. And I am a former house helper and now a multilingual author of educational children's books. My books are available to be part of this. Launched in Paris. I've already mentioned, a former house helper. I've to the leap to go back to school to pursue my studies, and I'm so grateful for the scholarships that I attained throughout the years consecutively. And I am here. I completed my Master of Science in International Business Management last year, November, and I'm so grateful to God. I'm also a co-founder of Smart Think Publishers, a publishing company that I've found with my sweet husband, Samuel Benson. I'm so grateful to be part of this. I'm also a speaker, aside from just being an author, and I also deal with the law, encourage them to believe in themselves once again. Thank you very much, Peace.
Oh, amazing, Zweli. And your story of starting out as a house helper and then the work that you're doing now is so inspiring. Now, your book, your chapter is called She Walked Barefooted into Her Destiny.
Thank you very much.
Why did you use this title for your chapter?
Oh my, grew up in a village called Balule. I actually went to Balule Primary School. I grew up in a village called Dibataba in Cholocho, and then I went to join my mom and my dad's homestead where I was 13. So I literally used to walk barefooted to school. So that really is a real connection and very personal story of a lived experience. And I walked barefooted to school during the cold days, winter days, and I'm so grateful to God for raising me up to be this kind of person I am. I always tell people I'm a powerhouse because where I come from and where I'm going. I understand the journey in between, but I'm grateful for the journey ahead. I walked barefooted, and look at me now. It doesn't matter what I've experienced, it matters how far am I gonna go. So it's characterized with the childhood trauma, the kind of personal experiences, the walking barefooted during winter days, during rainy seasons, during summer, because the ground was way so hot for me to walk barefooted. But look at me now, so it's a compilation of my lived experiences, all the events that I walked literally and experienced as a child barefooted, all the experiences of hunger, of childhood traumas, and all the bullies that I experienced in school, and everything else that was really working against me, circumstances of life. But looking back, I am grateful for walking barefooted into my destiny, because that's really what it defines. It defines the real me for now,
Yeah, incredible. I love that. Tell us about your definition of resilience. What does the word resilience mean to you?
In my chapter, I talked about my personal lived experiences and how I really had to put on the new girl that believed that, nothing is impossible with God. It was just a growth of a faith-filled girl who believed beyond the current circumstances of life. Working as a house helper, I refused to conform within the walls of just cleaning people's homes, I looked beyond. I asked myself questions like, where am I going? What is my calling? What is my passion? What is that God have called me to do? And I asked myself questions that if I do not identify the kind of calling that God have called me into and the office that God have called me into? How about those that will actually have their lives online, those that depend on me to arrive for them to be rescued? So I think that's one of the questions that really kept me going. And I think throughout the years I've learned resilience is just not giving up. It's giving up is an option, but I just chose not to. It's holding on even when you are in between the hard surface and the rock. It's dreaming beyond what you see. It's believing something better or sweeter will arrive in due time, you understand? So throughout the time of hardship, circumstances of life, of grief, of trying to figure out life, being a parent or a guardian at the age of 22, I looked beyond. Circumstances of life really were not favoring me. They were working against me, but I had to learn to redefine the status quo, to go beyond circumstances of life, to dream again, to see again, and believe that days ahead are sweeter. And also believe that, I can shine again. There's time to shine again.
That's amazing. I love that determination and passion that you have. So many women are still waiting for permission to fully step into their potential. What would you say to a woman who is standing at the edge of her own next chapter, but is afraid to begin or to give herself that permission?
Understand who you are. Understand why you live. In most cases, we believe that we exist for us to exist. Every person in life is birthed with those hidden talents in them. And the whole world relies on you to move. I believe in action. I believe in moving. I believe in doing something incredible. And just not for me to benefit, but for the people that are sent to benefit, those that are the recipients of our gift and talents. So I would love to encourage them to start. The whole secret is to start. Take that leap of faith. Move. Take that action. And believe that when you move, literally in the Bible, there is a portion in the Bible that God says, He will bless the works of your hands. So you cannot just sit down and relax and expect certain things to fall from heaven. No, you need to do something about your life. So do not fear. Do not fear. God is with you. Take the leap of faith. Do your best. God will do the rest.
I love that. That's so powerful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Throughout your life and your work, what has reinvention looked like for you? Has it been a single turning point or a series of smaller, brave decisions you've made along the way?
It's a series of events, I can assure you. I think one of the major things that really happened to me, the major turning point was when I decided to go back to school. Regardless of me having worked as a house helper for more than a decade, I had to make up my mind and say, girl, you need to do something that will sustain you throughout the years. I knew that at the age of 20, I was having so much power and energy, but I knew that those days of 40 and above will come. They were drawing closer. And I knew that at that age, I wouldn't be having energy for me to clean up people's houses. So I sat down in my room. I said to God, I need that very thing that I'll be doing at the age of 20, with so much, at the age of 40, with so much passion, unrestricted, unhindered, and I can still go beyond my full potential. And that was just pointing back to me to say, go back to school, acquire knowledge, learn new skills, and become the better version of yourself. And as I did that, I am so grateful today to announce that I managed to get 2 consecutive scholarships, one for my BA Honours Degree in Broadcasting and Journalism that I got from the late Tansre Tato Paduka, Dr. Limco Queen, who actually was the founder of Limco Queen University of Creative Technology in Botswana. And I got another scholarship to pursue my Master of Science in International Business Management from the UNICEF that I recently completed my Master of Science through University of East London. I'm so grateful because just that making up my mind to go back to school. I didn't have money. I didn't have, anyone to sponsor my school, but I just believed God. I prayed to God and sponsorships came to me consecutively. It was just a free deal from God. It was literally all the education sponsored by God, So if you believe God, nothing is impossible. Also, throughout the years, it was just not about me just going back to school, but committing, dedicating myself to that which I've started, to ensure that I complete what I started. You understand? It's one thing to start, it's one thing not to complete. But I made up my mind to say, regardless of how tough these things are, I have to finish what I started. And also throughout the years, holding on to God, because I had no option. I had to only rely on God and the word of God for me to become the better version of myself. So those were things that really helped me on. And the gift of community. And because sometimes we undermine the gift of community. I think with me, I was so blessed to reach different kinds of people that really embraced my becoming, and part of my community, the Christ Embassy Church, have raised me to become the woman that I am. And also the gift of family, in Botswana, the Nsiwa family, the Moyons family in Zimbabwe, and everybody else, friends, relatives, people that have backed me up throughout the years. There's a say that say umuntu ngabantu. It means a person is a person because you are a person, you exist, but because you are backed up with the community, you can now become a better version of yourself. So I think throughout the years, I've seen a lot of activities or events that really piled up to build up to make me the kind of person that I am today. Yeah,
amazing. Well, thank you so much, Swelly, for being part of Resilience and Reinvention, and thank you for being here to talk with me today. I've really enjoyed collaborating with you, and your story is so incredible, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Peace. Thanks to you and Kate and Dr. Terry Rai. By the way, she's my dream woman. I remember one time on Facebook, actually some lady saw me in a mall when I was selling my books, and the person said to me, "Your story resembles that of Dr. Terry Rai. Search for her on Facebook and you can follow her." So that's how my story started, and I followed her, and the next thing led to the other. I'm so grateful what you are doing with Kate and Dr. Terry Rai and your entire team is amazing. Thank you for amplifying our voices. Thank you for building a new world filled with love, kindness, empathy, and above all, building for our children to be the benefits of what we are bringing on earth. Thank you very much once again. God bless you.
Oh, thank you so much, Sally. So kind of you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'd now like to welcome our final guest for today, Emma Payne. Please join me on stage, Emma. Hi, Emma. It's wonderful to have you here. Now, for people who haven't met you before, I would love you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you and the work that you do. Oh, Emma, we can't hear you. Just check if your microphone is on. Okay, I can't hear you yet. Okay. Oh, sometimes it's the headphones. So if you unplug the headphones, that sometimes works. Not yet. There we go. That's better. Okay, let's try that again. Emma, for people who haven't met you before, please tell us a bit about you and the work that you do.
Thank you. I get a second chance, which is great. My name is Emma. I am originally from the UK, now live in sunny Sydney, although it's not so sunny at the moment. It's pouring with rain. And my background is music. I have an interest in music therapy, studied music in the UK, and I started teaching Zumba fitness about 15 years ago, and strangely had an opportunity to teach some Zumba Gold classes in aged care homes in my area. And then we grew from there to become pretty much an agency for entertainers and music and movement programs specifically for aged care facilities. Through that, personally have had around 90,000 interactions with people living with dementia and their families. So I have given myself a title of a dementia engagement specialist.
Amazing. So, Emma, your chapter is called Still Here, and that says so much in just 2 words.
Yeah.
What did that phrase mean to you when you were writing this story?
It's look, there's a lot to it, obviously. I've, through my working with older members of the community, and particularly women, which I've realized over the last 6 to 12 months, is that we get to a certain age and we get to a certain point in our life, and it's almost overnight. Our voices stop mattering. People stop asking our opinion. We don't get consulted. We don't get asked anymore. Decisions get made for us. People speak on our behalf. People want to, I think people's intentions are honorable. I think they want to help. But what happens in that process is that older people don't feel consulted. They don't feel important. They don't feel like they matter. They feel invisible. And I have one lady who comes to one of my classes. Her name's Bobby. She's 85 years old. She's very independent, still drives. I actually went out with her on Saturday night to see a band at a local Irish pub, and she was the first one on the dance floor. And I said to her one day, you know, what, tell me about you. And she said, I'm just determined that I'm not going to be invisible as I get older. And that kind of got me thinking about how we treat people. And, you know, we actually can't win, because if you look at Madonna recently, you know, performing in an outfit that she wore 20, 30 years ago, and the comments are, you know, she's too old. She shouldn't be wearing that. She should be in a home. So we want to empower women, and we want to, you know, celebrate each other, but at the same time, we're saying what you should and shouldn't be wearing. So the idea behind Still Here is that we are still here. People living with dementia are still here. People living with dementia often communicate in a different way, but we need to remember that the person is still here, and it's about understanding how their new forms of communication look, and how we can understand and best support and ultimately love them at the end of the day.
Yeah, I love that. And what would you tell people about, you know, really honoring and respecting older people? What advice would you?
I have developed a program called Enter Their World, which is pretty much what it sounds. And enter stands for E for engage, N for need, so find out their need, T for trust, E for educate, and R for reassure. I think one of the things that we do as women and as humans is that we often think we're helping, but we give the help that we think the person needs, instead of actually connecting with them, engaging, building up trust, and getting to the nitty-gritty of what that help looks like to them. And that's one of the things that I spoke about in the chapter is, you know, find out what the person needs. You might think that, you know, and I've got a friend in a wheelchair, and she said people will hold the door open for her, whereas she actually wants them to hold her coffee so she can open the door. So it's the empathy, it's the understanding, it's the putting yourself in their shoes, entering their world, and finding out what their needs are, not projecting what we think their needs are on top of that.
That's huge, isn't it? I mean, it's such a small thing, but it's actually huge. And it's, you know, instead of making assumptions about what people need, it's just asking them. It's not that hard. No. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it's interesting, because that actually came, as I mentioned, I have a friend in a wheelchair, and obviously listening to Harry talking about, you know, being in a wheelchair kind of got a few bells ringing. Once my friend had pointed that out to me, and look, it was something that I hadn't even considered, because I like to help people, but I hadn't considered that maybe the help I was giving was not the help that the person needed. And when I did that, and when I kind of flipped that, even helping my kids with their homework, I'd sit down and they'd go, Mom, I'm stuck on my maths. And I'd say, well, you just do this and you just do that and you just do that. And I'd almost do it for them, thinking that I was helping. Once I'd had that realization and those conversations, I actually stopped myself, and I took a little bit more time, and I asked them, what do you need help with? Which part of it are you stuck on? Enabling them to make their own decisions and to guide me in how best to support them. And I think that's the thing, especially working with older women and people living with dementia. It's that, understanding, entering their world, not correcting, not making people wrong or people feel like they're silly or they're making mistakes. It's, the meeting them where they're at and understanding it from their perspective rather than our own.
I love that. So your chapter is really very honest and grounded. Did writing this chapter bring up anything unexpected for you emotionally or personally?
I had a really emotional day today. So this is great timing. And the reason I've had an emotional day is because I tend to be, and hearing some of these other amazing women speak, I'm the upbeat one, the positive one, the look on the bright side. Everything's rosy. We go in, our organization go into aged care homes to make people feel good. Over the last year or so, maybe a couple of years, that's shifted to not trying to make people feel better. It's more about making people feel understood and heard, and knowing that, sometimes we just have yucky days where things don't go right. And it's more about honoring people's feelings instead of trying to change them. And obviously working in aged care, we have people that we work with that pass away, or they lose friends or loved ones. And it's not about going in and cheering them up and making them feel better. It's about going, you know what, that's tough. And I'm just going to sit here. Would you like a hug? Would you like to hold my hand for 5 minutes? Tell me about the person. Tell me about what you're going to miss, instead of trying to cheer them up. And today was particularly tough because I work a lot with people living with dementia, and a particular class and session was cancelled ongoing due to budget restrictions, which I understand, it's business. But the residents weren't consulted, and the residents weren't asked what they thought, and they weren't given a choice and given a say. And I was angry, sad today, because it just highlighted to me how much people lose their voice and they lose their own choice in their own lives as they get older. And also, once dementia develops or they're living in aged care facilities, how little their opinions matter. So yeah, today was a tough one.
Gosh, it's a lot, isn't it? And I think there's something in what you said about, you used to go in and cheer them up and make them feel better, but now it's more important to you that they feel understood. Can you tell us about this? Was there a moment where a realization came to you that you should be doing things differently?
There's a lot of stories. I remember saying to a class once, and it was a seniors class. It wasn't in an aged care home. I said, come on, make some noise. It makes me feel good, or something like that. And one of the ladies said to me, well, it's not about you. I don't want to make noise. I'm just happy doing what I'm doing. And I was like, oh, okay, that's different. And then last week I had a lady whose friend who lived in the room opposite her in the aged care home, she had passed away. And her name's Bev, and I sat with Bev and I said, I know that Jill's passed away. I'm really sorry to hear that. How are you? And she said, oh, I'm okay. And I said, hold on, how are you actually? And she said, I'm not good at all. And I sat next to her and I said, it's okay. You don't have to be good. It's awful and it's very sad and you've just lost your best friend and it must feel horrible, and it's okay to admit that it feels horrible. And she looked at me and she said, no one has said that to me. Everyone keeps telling me to look on the bright side. Everyone tells me to, be positive, that I can go to the concert this afternoon and I'll have a lovely time, and to cheer up, and, Jill's not in pain anymore, and, just be happy that you knew her. And she said, for 5 minutes, I'm really grateful that you've just been okay with me feeling awful. And that was one of those moments where I was like, wow, this is powerful, that we need to, and it's not just in aged care. It's not just with people living with dementia. It's all people. It's about honoring all emotions and all the feelings, and not feeling like we have to make people feel better all the time.
That's really powerful. And I think our society we don't want to let people feel grief. And so we kind of rush to, it'll be fine, and try and be positive and all of that. But yeah, the impact of that for people who are living in aged care, where their friends might pass away, and, the other fears they have about their life, it's huge, actually.
Yeah. And even, day to day for everyone, you can have a really crappy day where your car breaks down and, things don't go right, and you get home and everyone wants to make you feel better. Sometimes you just want to be angry and cranky about it for a little while. And I think, I'm not an expert and I'm not a psychologist, that's for sure. I think it doesn't help that we have this whole think positive all the time. I think we have to, I think it's important to understand that things don't always go the way we want. And sometimes it's okay just to go, well, that wasn't great. I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling angry, or whatever those feelings are. And even more so when people are older and, feeling lonely and isolated, every 50%, more than 50% of older people feel lonely and isolated. And that's people living in the community. 80% of people in aged care are depressed. So, going in and saying, cheer up, or, let's dance, let's have a great time, that's great, but it's not actually helping them. It's making us feel good because temporarily we make them feel better. But in the long run, it's not actually serving anyone.
Yeah, amazing. So interesting. 80% of people in aged care are depressed. It's a terrible statistic. But I love the work that you're doing in listening and holding space. I think it's so important. So important. So many women keep going while carrying things no one else can see. What do you wish people understood more about resilience?
I think, and a couple of the authors have touched on this, is that, it's not about just doing it by yourself. It's about asking for help. As a helper, I'm really bad at accepting help. And I show love by helping. And then often the people around me get frustrated because I don't let them show me love by helping me, because I'm strong and independent and I'm going to figure it out by myself. And I'm a strong, independent woman and I don't need anyone. But that also means that people don't actually get to help me, and they don't get to show me that they love me and that they care about me and they want to look after me and take care of me. So I think, allowing other people in, being honest about how you're feeling, not always looking on the bright side and being positive and upbeat. And, I guess asking for the help that you need, flipping what we were saying earlier about, asking what help other people need. Be specific and explain the help that you need from other people is definitely a key to being resilient.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Emma, for being here. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. And thank you so much for your chapter in resilience and reinvention.
Thank you so much.
Really
The whole
wonderful.
process has been wonderful, and listening to the other authors and yourself, like it's been a wonderful opportunity. So I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much. Well, that concludes our session for today. Make sure that you grab your copies of Resilience and Reinvention. You can pre-order them at our website, wcwpress.com, and we will see you again very soon. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and thank you to all of my authors who joined me. Our online festival continues all this week, so we will see you again very soon. Bye for now.